Okay. And sorry about the whole delay and everything. We've been just crazy.
No worries, no worries. I was going to say delay. I'm the one that's late. No, that's what you meant. I literally had a parking issue. I just ran down the block to try to get here as fast as I could.
No worries. Um, so we have Bruno, anxious and dog reactive, and you've done some training before.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and fill me in on Bruno, just what you're experiencing and all that stuff, and then we'll take it from there.
So I rescued him in August, and pretty much immediately I noticed, well, they told me he was good with other dogs too, because actually the first dog you just saw is my sister's dog, Javi.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, I spend a lot of time with them, so I wanted to make sure that I got a dog that would get along with him, and luckily they do get along great, but I don't really know how. He is just like, when you bring him outside, he's like, immediately you can like feel how anxious he is. Like he's like on alert. At first, like for months and months, he would walk like in a zigzag, like trying to like, pay attention to everything, see everything. I also noticed he's more stressed out in the dark, and I think it's because he can't see. He doesn't know what's about to come.
Okay.
He's pretty good with people for the most part. But like when I got him, I was living in the city. I moved back home with my mom for a few months in the suburbs. And honestly, I think that was really bad for him because there weren't as many dogs. And then coming back to the city, I just moved back to the city. Like when I go outside, even if there's no dogs, like he's very anxious in new places. He's very anxious. But he doesn't like react to them. He like is looking around, like trying to figure out what's going on. But with dogs, he'll like lose his shit. But he's getting better. Like he knows that we don't want him to bark, so he'll start whining. But sometimes he does let out a bark here and there, but like it's pretty bad. Like when I did bring him to, so I started, sorry, this story's all over the place. Okay. I started training with him, I want to say like early September. I got him August 10th and started, I'd say pretty quickly. I don't know if it was end of August, beginning of September. And that trainer didn't really help me at all. Pretty much just told me how to teach him his name. We played the name game.
Okay.
Yeah. But then they had a new trainer at the time at that same facility that they were like, she's really good with reactive dogs. And my first session with her, it was my last session in the package, and I was with this other trainer. And like he did better that time. And then she was the trainer that had him for a board and train in, what was that, January, February?
Mm-hmm.
You know when I did that? End of January, beginning of February, somewhere in there. February. And like I have videos of him like fine there, but she was immediately, she's like, I mean, this is pretty bad. Like he was so stressed out. Mm-hmm. For the first few days.
In the environment?
In the environment. And he was, when I took him to that training center, he was super stressed out.
Yeah.
Like every time it took like a long time for him to be able, they got him on the treadmill a lot. Yeah, he gets really, really, really anxious. And he doesn't like other dogs.
What tool did they work him on?
I'm sorry?
What tool did they work him on?
E-collar. He's on an e-collar. I have since, they recommended a slip lead to me. We are very interested in like we follow a bunch of dog trainers on social media. That's actually how we found you. And we have him on the what is it called? Hermspring prong collar.
Yep.
They're going crazy.
He's pretty good at walking. We've done all like the figure eights and the turn-in stuff.
We've been putting in a shit ton of work on him. Like we're killing ourselves, like trying to help him, because you can tell he is like, he doesn't feel good, you know. yeah, I don't know.
But he's
What
really
else?
good with the walking skills, like I was saying. It's just like once he's
Sometimes.
anxious is when then he'll start pulling.
Yeah.
Okay. And he triggers into anxiety like when he sees a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, as soon as you get outside, he's a different dog. Like you can feel his
he's on
energy
edge.
changes. He's looking around. He's trying to figure. Sorry, they're going crazy. Yeah, he's on edge looking for anything, and then as soon as he sees a dog, it's like a 10.
Okay.
And he like I said though, he is getting better though in terms of like
No, go.
managing it, like because he knows we don't want it and he's trying. And I feel like we're just at this point where it's like we've been doing so much and it's definitely helping, but I don't know what else to do for him.
Okay. What kind of e-collar is he on?
The yellow one,
Is it the mini?
the mini educator. Yes, there we go.
How big is he?
He's like 60-ish
55.
pounds, 55, 60 pounds.
What's his number on the e-collar?
Oh, I have it around a 50, 55 usually.
Depending if he's like inside or outside.
Well, you don't really use it inside.
Yeah, never do anymore.
And how does that work for him at that 50, 55?
He definitely feels it. I know the other trainer did want him on it higher, but I don't know if it was like they were in the training facility and he needed it higher because he yelps sometimes when I hit it.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly use the toner more than anything else. He seems to stay more calm when I use that.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll like refocus. Sometimes I hit it a couple times and then he's fine. If it's really bad, I will hit the
Neck.
And sometimes it makes it worse, and that's when he starts jumping and leash biting, and then sometimes he just totally ignores it and then we'll keep going. It's like a 50-50.
He's got a really good recall too. Like he listens, so like he in the suburbs where he lived for a few months, like we take in the backyard. We don't have a fence or anything, but he listens super well back there. And we never had any problems with that. And
Even if a dog would walk by, I hit that thing and he comes straight back to me. He has no interest in that. Yeah.
But yeah, then I was gonna say something else. I don't know. Oh, we hand feed him all the time, so he like listens really well. And inside, he's super good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we've said right when we go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the stress.
Right. Yeah.
On the e-collar, are you using the nick or the continuous function?
I don't even know what that means.
Do you have it nearby?
Hey!
Yeah, I do. Bruno, go place. Hey. Do you know where it is? Did you have it?
No, I didn't use it.
Okay, he's on.
It's right where you
Oh,
left
it's right here. Since I moved out, the dogs haven't been together and they're all excited.
No, it's okay.
I have it right here.
Is it turned on?
Yeah.
Do you see M and C on the front?
Yeah, I'm on one side, C on the other.
Okay, so what that means is the black button, at least if it's standard setup, the black button is momentary.
Yeah.
Which means a tap. And then
yeah, like it doesn't hit him the whole, continuous. It doesn't keep going. It's just, like a little nick. Yeah.
It just, because sometimes, like I've had a couple of dogs that the owner was like, the dog always yelps.
Yeah.
But they were using continuous.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm just making sure that, I'm trying to get some ideas here.
Yeah.
Okay, so then if he sees a dog, he whines, he stares, he gets anxious. You tap him at 50, he yelps.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does he do?
Well, we try to distract him. We try to get him right away in figure eights, but sometimes he's like jumping all around. Sometimes it's different like situations every time. Like sometimes he handles it really good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's horrible.
Yeah.
Did they teach you how to do heel?
Not my trainer, but I do like from like on Instagram. I don't know how familiar you are with
But what about the board and train? I'm assuming you got follow up.
they no. And honestly, that was the part that I was most upset about is she told me it was going to be like at least a 45-minute like exit interview and I got like 5 minutes. And I was just like, okay, do I know everything I need to know? Like, and she was like, yeah, I think so. She was just like, if he goes ahead of you, like, just like turn into him. And I mean, that is what I've heard from other trainers. And he does, like, he's pretty good at heel. Like, we've taught him that.
Mhm.
But yeah, the board and train was like, he did good there with her, but she was still like, she's like, he's still like, he's not like fixed or anything. Like he still has the problems that he had before, but like I got videos and he was around other dogs he didn't know. And he like,
Yeah, but that doesn't matter
fine. Yeah.
because he's out of context.
Right.
It happens all the time. Like we get dogs here that the owner's like, oh, they're dog reactive, but they're social. You know, it's because it's like it's one, it's not their territory. Two, it's like a community space.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like going to a bar and like when you go to a bar, we're assuming it's going to be loud,
Right.
right? So it's like going to a bar and then just being like complaining like it's that it's loud.
Right.
You don't like it being loud, then don't go to the bar, right? But if you go to a quiet restaurant and there's like a loud couple, that's different,
Right.
right? So for the dog, it's the same thing. When he comes into the facility, he's like, oh, there's dogs here.
Yeah.
Right? And it happens all the time where I get clients that come to my facility who their dogs are dog reactive and they walk right through, no problem.
Right. Right.
Okay, unless it's an extreme case, like right now, out of like 40 dogs that I have on my calendar, only one actually started blowing up.
Wow.
Okay, and she wasn't blowing up at the dogs; she was blowing up at the humans.
Interesting.
So that's a case where I'm like, yeah, we got some stuff to work on here. Actually, I have two cases like that right now. One just started this past Sunday, and one's been going on for about 4 to 5 weeks now. Otherwise, all the other reactive cases walk straight through, no problem.
Right.
Because the other thing is if they try to start a fight, they're outnumbered.
Like he definitely wasn't good there.
Mm-hmm.
At first, at least, and then he decompressed and he was doing better.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say?
Like, I don't think he would totally lose it in the facility. Like, I don't think he would jump around, like spaz out. I think he would just be whining like crazy and super stressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they give you a reference point for his levels?
What did she say?
Oh.
I don't remember what she said to me, but I know he came in with it at like a 40 and she was like, it definitely needs to be higher than that. But again, like I said, is that Hobby? Yeah. Hobby. I want to say she was saying like 70, but like he feels it. Like he knows when I have it at like a 50, he knows he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. How he reacts to that is different, I think.
And like for the listening thing in the e-collar, even if we have it on something super low and if it's not on him, like he'd always in the house in the suburbs, he'd always look out the window and when he'd see dogs walk by, he'd whine or bark or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you just hit the toner and he heard the e-collar, which he would if it was on the table or just somewhere in the room, he'd hear it and he'd listen. Like it doesn't need to be that loud. It's just outside that needs to be way.
But yeah, we don't have it on a 50. I mean, like I said, I don't really use it for the most part in the house. I don't use it. It's just outside.
I don't think it was layered in correctly.
Maybe not.
Okay. Most trainers don't know how to use e-collar correctly.
Okay.
And the way, in my opinion, that you're talking about the heel is incorrect.
Okay.
Okay. So we'd have to reteach some stuff. You'd be surprised how many old school things are still around to this day that are, in my opinion, incorrect. So, because like, not that we don't get dogs at leash bite and all that stuff, but it's usually frustration. Okay, and frustration can come from a lack of knowing what to do. because he's like, how do I solve this problem? Right. So he's just like getting agitated. And when dogs get frustrated, they release things through their mouth in terms of chewing, barking, salivating, licking, biting. All that stuff is a means of releasing how they feel. So that if how long was he there for? A week, 2 weeks?
10 days.
10 days. Okay. Um, yeah, like we get dogs like that in the beginning, and usually by the end of the first class, every now and then it might take a little bit longer. The dog is over it because the dog figures out how to turn it off. But if they don't know how to turn it off, it can create more frustration. Okay. The other thing is the mini educator is meant for 35 pounds and under, which is why I was asking the size of your dog and everything. And I'll go more into that later. Because there's a couple of factors here. One, I don't think it was layered in correctly. Two, it's the inappropriate collar. Three, in my experience, the educator brand makes reactive dogs or nervous dogs, anxious dogs more stressed out because of how the stim is delivered.
Okay.
I used to use educator way back when I first started training, and I had a handful of cases that were getting worse.
Okay.
And I switched to Dogtra. I switched all those dogs to Dogtra, and all of a sudden we started making progress. Okay, so my theory is the educator brand has a sharper feel, and the Dogtra brand is a duller feel. Okay, and ever since I've always used Dogtra. The only time I use educator is if it's just obedience. Like the dog is perfectly fine. It's just obedience stuff. But even then, I'm not a fan of it. But it is a good quality collar. But that's about the only time that I'll ever accept someone using a educator brand is if it's the appropriate size to the dog, but then two, as long as there's no kind of behavioral issue, I'll go, okay, that's fine that we use that tool. Okay. So here with, what's your dog's name again?
Bruno.
Bruno. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve?
Like ultimately I want to be able to like go out and do things with him. Like I want to be able to go to a park. I want to be able to hang out with bring him to a restaurant and have him like sit at my feet. It feels like impossible, but
He's too stressed that you can't do that.
Yeah, he's so stressed out and so reactive. Like he would be, I feel like, I obviously haven't tried it, but I feel like he would end up bark. Like the only way I can get him to not bark is by walking around and like distracting him.
Yeah.
He would be going nuts.
Okay. So here I'd have to, I wouldn't really know until we're in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Some dogs are just genetically screwed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Where they're just always anxious. I have one dog in particular that comes to my daycare who's half blind and is super anxious. And if we're not on him, he'll salivate, and all of his chin and his chest and the bottom of his kennel will be soaked in drool.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so we have to be on him to keep him passive, but we can get him to the point where he will chill and he will just lay there and not pant and not salivate. Yeah. It just takes a lot of effort on our part to be mindful of him, because obviously if we're taking care of 30 dogs, we're going to get distracted and then he gets anxious again, right? Otherwise, if it sounds like he doesn't understand e-collar like he should, and it's making him more frustrated. It can also make the dog more anxious because they don't know how to really control it. Okay, so I had a young lady work with me.
That happens. I would say that happens that when you use the actual shock one, that's when he gets way more anxious.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that too. So like I had a young lady who with her dog would 100 continuously with a particular collar for everything because he was super reactive, right? And I remember when I saw him, he was an anxious wreck. He was just all over the place.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, and because we had lowered the number, but he was still like just all over the place. And then I was like, "Are you on continuous?" And she goes, "Yeah." She's like, "Otherwise, it doesn't work." And I'm like, "Oh no. Let's go to momentary." Right? We did a few exercises, and I said, "I'll see you in a week." And then when she came back the next week, he was much calmer because he wasn't getting blasted at 100. He also wasn't just getting blasted in general,
Right.
but also he started to learn how it turned on and how it turned off.
right.
So then he started to see it as a line of communication as opposed to this random thing that happens, and he's not sure how it starts and how it stops.
right.
Okay. Now, in some cases, because e-collar is a stressor, we do see more anxiety.
Mhm.
Okay. So people's first response when they see their dog get more stressed is typically to lay off the stressor.
Mhm.
Okay. But then you keep the dog in limbo because you expose them to the stressor, but then you don't work them through it.
Mhm.
So then he gets stressed, but he doesn't know how to overcome it. And so every time he gets there, he just stays there.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you talked about using the toner,
Uh-huh.
we don't use the tone, we don't use the vibrate. We use purely stim all the time. Okay. So think of so the e-collar is a stressor because it's a negative, it's an aversive, it's uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
Have you guys ever been skydiving?
No.
Do you think that would be stressful?
Yes.
Okay. So if you go skydiving once a month, you kind of get used to it, but it would take quite a bit of time. But if you went skydiving every day, you'd get over it very quickly, right? So that's the same thing with the e-collar. You're using the toner because you're not trying to make them anxious, which at the same time he also hasn't understand it correctly. And my assumption is he doesn't. Is that he's going to get anxious every time because you're using it when he's like at his worst, kind of, right? And it's super common. We use it for everything, and that's why the dog gets over it. Okay, but you have to use it for everything and use it for everything appropriately. Okay, so then eventually you start using it less because he starts to realize, oh, if I just do this or don't do that, I can avoid it altogether.
Right.
And then once he understands the game, he relaxes. So it's like coming home and finding a ticket in your mailbox and they don't give you a reason. You're like, why did I get a ticket? Right. And then you just start getting tickets with no reason. You start to get frustrated because it's like, how do I avoid getting a ticket? What is the answer to not getting a ticket? Right. So same thing for the dog. If it's just consequence and there's not an association of how or why it's happening, he's just like, why? You know, so that's my assumption.
Wait, I have a question real quick.
Hmm.
You're saying use it for everything. Like, what do you mean? Because we wouldn't need to use it for anything because he listens. Like, when we tell him to come, he comes. When we tell him to sit, he sits. When we tell him down, he's down. When we tell him to go place, he goes place. Like,
Yeah, but when you're outside, he doesn't.
so yeah. So I'm saying though, when would you're saying use it for everything? Like, what do you mean use it for everything?
Like if you go outside, right?
Okay.
And I'd have to see the heel because I know you guys said he heals well, right? But if you gave Bruno the complete slap, would he stay at your side?
If when he's stressed, when he's really stressed, no. But once you're walking a while and he gets used to it, sometimes like
He
you can get him
goes
too.
like I'm sorry.
He likes to
something
get
in
a
my throat.
little ahead.
Yeah, he goes like just above a heel is his
Okay.
like normal.
So then he doesn't know the heel.
Yeah.
Okay. So right there. So by use it for everything, it's everything. If I go outside with Bruno, he's right shoulder, left leg, right there. There is no passing even an inch. That's one aspect of it. Okay. Stress or no stress. I don't care how he feels about anything, you're going to be there. Okay. The next thing would be if like he starts to look at a dog and whine, I correct that. I don't want that. Right. Let's say I tell him to down and he's like slowly laying down. I don't want that. I want quick.
Yeah.
Right. But we tend to give repeated commands or warnings with the tone to give the dog the opportunity to avoid the pressure. But we jump in right with the pressure. So instead of the warning, it's just the e-collar.
Right. When do you though, because I know that you do use prong collars. So like when would you choose correcting with like the leash versus
I don't.
you don't correct with the leash at all?
No.
And
The
why
the prong is there for leverage because it happens very often where an owner will have the dog in a prong collar from a trainer or whatever for reactivity. And they're like, Jesse, man, I yanked my dog and the dog's still reactive. Right? I'm like, yeah, because the dog is beyond what the prong collar can do. Because you can only yank so hard.
Right.
So if his anxiety is at a 20 and your correction on the prong is at a 10, you're not going to get anywhere. So we do everything to the e-collar because the e-collar will override the dog or can over the dog. That's why the power is so important. So if the output is meant for a 35-pound and under dog, and he's 60 pounds, and again, this is all thinking it was layered in correctly. I get dogs that you would be on 100, and you'll see this happening. They're completely unfazed, and then it's because it's a lower output collar on a big. So it's like boxing. If you put a featherweight against a heavyweight, that's why there's classes: heavyweight, middleweight, featherweight, right? Because otherwise it would be an unfair fight to have a 100-pound person versus a 250-pound person.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that's like the same thing with the e-collar. You have a featherweight e-collar to like a middle to heavyweight dog. Okay. So that's why the output, I always talk about that with my clients, because you have to account for the size of the dog. You have to account for the fact that dogs are naturally physically tough because they bite each other. They have a higher tolerance for pain because they can't show weakness. Otherwise, they could makes them a target. So like you go on YouTube and see a dog with a broken leg walking with a broken leg, right? Because they can't show weakness. Otherwise, it makes them a target. 4, stress levels, right? How anxious is the dog? Is the dog super anxious, fearful, nervous, aggressive? We also have to account for the thickness of the dog's coat. So if it's a short-coated dog, easier because we're having more consistent contact. But if it's a denser coated dog, more difficult because we have to get through all that coat. Right. So these are all things that I think about when I come into cases. I got to look at the behavior, size of the dog, the breed of the dog, and then from there I go, okay, this is the collar that you need. Okay. The reason why most trainers use the educator is because it's the cheapest, highest quality collar there is. So when they try to sell it to someone, it's an easier sell to buy something that's $179.99 versus something that's $325.99. Okay, but that's the difference. So the other thing is, we as a seller, if they're selling it themselves, get a bigger margin on profit with the educator. No, okay.
No, they recommended it to me, but I bought it myself on Amazon.
That's usually how that works. If they're selling it themselves, they get a bigger profit margin. Or because it is a good quality collar, I'm not denying that. It's the cheapest, highest quality collar there is. Okay. So a lot of my dogs that I train on that came from a previous trainer with e-collar are almost always on the mini educator. So like I had a gentleman who did a 2-week board and train. He had a 90-pound pit, 90-pound pit dog reactive on the mini educator. And he's like, I don't know why my dog doesn't listen. I'm like, that's why. I'm like, that collar is meant for 35-pound dog. Your dog's 90 pounds. So once we fixed the collar and everything, we were able to make progress. So as long as he's not a genetic screw up, I don't see why we can't make progress. Okay.
Well, like, I don't know. We believe in Bruno. Like, he has made so much improvement, but I mean, he is just like so anxious outside. Okay. So I don't know.
Question so far.
Do you have any off the top of your head?
Oh, I did. I forget. So let me think. Oh, wait, no.
I guess, especially regarding price of the of not even talking about the training, but just of the e-collar, like, is that something that I would have to purchase right away? Because like that's a lot of money, like the training and the collar, especially because we already have one. Could we like try to see if this one works for him?
Yeah, the only problem is, let's say you do 2 to 3 classes, right? Let's say you do a 6-week program, you do 2 to 3 classes on the educator, and it's not working. Well, now you just wasted 2 to 3 classes.
So he would have learned, Bruno. No. And get 2 of them and get them both to bark. We love that. Bruno. Come here. Go. Good boy. Sorry. He wouldn't like get anything from the classes.
If it's not the appropriate output.
Right.
So because I've had people, with an inappropriate collar do classes, and we don't get anywhere.
Okay.
Because I can't make up for a collar that's not meant for your dog.
Right.
You know, so I don't care. But then if you go 2 to 3 classes in, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, like I've already wasted a lot of money on training.
Yeah, no, I get that, right?
Training
But then we end up back to square one, and then like let's say you do a 6-week program. Now we only have 3 classes
right.
with the appropriate tool
Right.
to try to address it. Okay.
Yeah.
My whole thing has always been just I get it, make the investment, and then from class 1,
You at least
we're
have
good.
the
Okay.
right tool.
Because if you go 2 to 3 classes in, that's technically the same price as the collar itself,
Right.
if not more.
Yeah.
You know, you're more than welcome to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know until I actually see the dog in progress,
Right.
in process, and then by class 2, I can. If you come back class 2 with your collar and you're like, hey Jesse, man, this is fucking world of a difference, then I go, we're good. Okay. My only concern would be if he ever became reactive, where he's on high stress, is you're definitely not going to most likely cut through with that collar.
Okay.
Because you have to think about the dog at the worst.
Right.
That's what we always think about, right? Where I go, okay, if he's under a lot of stress for whatever reason, and I got this collar on him, can I shut it down still?
Right.
Okay. And it happens where it's rare, but as long as you have the appropriate collar, a dog will even override the appropriate collar. So like I have a dog right now. If you want, you can watch his videos on my YouTube. His name's Doug. And he's a pity. He's super human reactive.
Okay.
And he's on the appropriate collar. And it took me like 5 minutes on maxed out continuous before he finally stopped trying to attack me on class 4 or 5.
Wow.
Okay. Before he finally backed off and started holding back and not trying to go after me, it was literally like 5 minutes of continuous 127 until he finally felt it and then started to register and like chill out. And then today I saw him, he did a lot better. We were like 65, 95 range without continuous,
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we have controlled contacts. In life, you're not always going to have controlled contacts. You can turn the corner, there's going to be a dog,
Right.
type stuff. So, but that's up to you in terms of the collar.
Okay.
Um,
Can you repeat the name of the one you said? Dogma?
Dogtra,
Dogtra. Okay.
Dogtra.
Just so I have it.
And the one I'd recommend for Bruno would be the Black Edition. And that's meant for 70 pounds and over.
1900 SE. Does that sound right?
No, that's the standard edition.
No.
It's a Black Edition.
Go on there.
I'm trying. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Did you find it already?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's happening? Products. Sorry, I just want to make sure I know what I'm at least.
And Maria would send you the information.
Oh, you can send me the information. That's perfect. Okay.
But it's meant for 70 pounds and over. So like we had another client with like an 80, 90 pound Roddy.
Uh-huh.
And they accidentally bought the standard edition. And then when my trainer was working with him, the dog started lunging and barking at a person. And they're at 127, and you could see the twitch, but the dog could care less. And then the lady was like, oh, why isn't it working? This is the highest powered collar. And then my trainer saw, because the remote looks different. And he's like, no. He's like, that collar is meant for 35 pounds and under. He's like, you got the wrong collar, So, because that dog was under stress, it wasn't enough, even maxed out, to even like register.
But 70 pounds and over, though, wouldn't that be too much for him?
No. I could use on my 8-pound Chihuahua.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
It just means it's more from less.
Okay.
Okay, so like 55 on your collar right now could be like 25, 30 on the Black Edition.
Oh, okay. So you just adjust it.
Yeah, so it's just you get more from less. And there's 127 levels, so it's not 27 more. It's just more divided.
Okay.
Okay. But that would be my suggestion on that. In terms of length of time and cost for that, it really just comes down to what you're trying to achieve. If you're just trying to like be able to walk your dog, and it sounds like he's got pretty solid recall as is, um, you know, that's like the 6 class range. Because I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. The 3-week program is like I just want to walk my dog and address the reactivity. Okay. The 6-week program is walk my dog, go to the park. The 9-week program is walk my dog, go to the park, go to restaurants. And then the 12-week program is, you know, all 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. And I do everything with my dog. Go to the dog beach, go to the forest preserve, you know, go to off leash in unenclosed areas. I take my dog everywhere. That's like the 12-week program. Okay. So if you're really just prioritizing the behavior stuff, you'd probably be good with just the 6 classes. I would reteach the heel. I'd probably visit it to see what you know and what you're doing, and then go, okay, we're gonna make some adjustments here, and then reteach it to make sure he's learning the collar and what it is correctly. Okay, so heel is almost always the first thing that we teach. So if you ever look at our videos on our YouTube channel, lesson 1 is almost always heel. Okay, because it helps teach the dog how the e-collar works, how it turns on and off. When a dog feels the e-collar, they typically want to move. So heel is a moving behavior, so it allows the dog to express the movement when they feel the collar. If we see frustration and irritation and leash biting and stuff, we got to work them through it. So I coach you to that as well. And then I give you your homework, and you go off and you come back and you let me know progress or no progress, and we just kind of go from there. Okay. So the first 2 classes are heel. 3rd class would give us a good idea of where we're at. Okay, and you're my feedback, and you might say, like, you know what, Jesse, he's still stressed, but he's not like, you know, zigzagging, or he's not like getting lost when he sees a dog where he just doesn't pay attention to us anymore. Like, he's actually like stressed but paying attention. I go, cool. Keep exposing him, keep practicing. We'll go to the next thing. If you're like, he still stares at dogs and we're having a hard time breaking his focus, I'd ask questions. How high are you going? Will you go to 80? What's his response at 80? Does he keep staring at the dog after 80? Like, I got to figure out what's going on. And then from there, tailor a few things and then move on to the next thing. Okay. So it's a lot of trial and error. There's a structure, but it's not like cookie cutter. You know, how he responds to the collar, how often you get to practice, are you following through? All those things are factors in how we move forward. If it's straightforward and it just was miscommunication with the e-collar, we should make really good progress, because your dog's already got a bunch of training, right? So because there's obedience and then there's behavior. Obedience is mechanical. Put your butt down, lay down, go to that bed, right? Behavior is where the real work is. Okay, so he's got all the mechanical stuff down. It's just making sure that the communication is clear, so he understands when he's being remoted, why he's being remoted.
Yeah, well, and even saying like he's really good at obedience, which he is for the most part, but put in other factors and it's not perfect. I mean, we even have Javi here and he's not listening the way he usually does. But they lived together before and he would, around Javi, pay attention all the time. So like outside factors definitely make a difference.
And you said like this is his first time together with Javi?
No. Since moving, it's their first time. But we lived together for 4 or 5 months.
The dogs get along really well.
They love each other.
Hey.
Bruno. Good boy.
What was he barking at?
Heard
A noise outside.
Okay. And that stuff we can cut out too.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Do you see this? Like, is this a normal case where you'd see it like just reactive towards dogs and like just gets anxious as soon as he goes outside? Like, would you say you've heard that a few times before?
No.
Yeah, it's not.
It can be overstimulation. It can be the dog goes out. So like when you went from the sub, like in the suburb, he did better.
Well, There'd just be like no
No,
dog.
I feel like he got worse overall.
Right, on the return.
Well, like when we would see dogs, it was bad.
Because it was unusual to see.
Okay.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
like maybe we go on some walks and we never see a dog, and that would not be unusual at all. That'd be-
Right. Like I always say, it wouldn't be weird to see a dog or two, and it wouldn't be weird to not see a dog at
Yeah.
all.
And that's why it became worse. So there's a couple things that can happen. One, I get lots of clients that come from suburb or small town Michigan or whatever, and they move to busy Chicago. And all of a sudden the dog that had no issues before is super reactive
Right.
because of all the energy, the busy commotion, the hustle and bustle of Chicago
Right.
puts the dog under stress. And I've had clients who go from Chicago to like a suburb and the dog's better, it's quieter.
Yeah.
In
Right.
your case, it was you would go for walks, and because seeing dogs were infrequent, it made it more threatening.
Right. Right.
make
It
sense?
was very apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you come back to the city, and then it's just like dogs everywhere.
Right. And
Yeah.
I will say, our first, like, because I moved in kind of slowly, and we brought him here a couple of times before I moved in to like introduce him and walk around. And like he improved drastically.
Yeah, we were really surprised how good he did.
Yeah, like we were impressed and like shocked, to be
Yeah.
honest. But obviously it's still not perfect. That's why we're talking to
Yeah.
you. And he still needs a lot of help, but like he like shaped up pretty quick.
Yeah, like honestly, when he moved into the suburbs a while ago, like he didn't adjust very good. Just like getting used to the house and stuff. But then here he did like really well.
Yeah, there
So that
hasn't
wasn't no
been like
problem.
major issues. He was like going to the bathroom in the house at my mom's. It was bad.
Oh, okay.
And he was already potty trained.
Yeah, that's just maybe stress or something.
Getting used to
Yeah.
the new environment, it took him a little bit. But here he's been like pretty good. And even like you hearing him bark here, like it does happen.
But it's just because he's around.
But
Hot,
I
maybe.
think Javi's here and he's like, oh, I'm gonna bark. I don't know.
Sure. Anything else?
I think I could think of a question you're gonna have is, well, how like she works all day, she lives alone. How often would you crate him, and like what like schedule should he be on?
Yeah, that's a good
Do you
question.
work like a 9 to 5?
I'm a teacher, so basically.
Okay, so that's pretty standard.
Okay, so that's
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
okay. I
Yeah,
am
8 to 9 hours. Mhm.
okay, so that's
That should be. I'm sorry.
I just said so that's not bad. I've been feeling guilty. This is my
Yeah,
first time like
that's good.
fully crate training him, and like he's doing really well, but I feel like a guilty dog mom,
Dog sleeps 16 to 20 hours a day. You're just picking where he does it for 8 to 9.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah. I'm doing it because I know
Yeah.
it's what's best for him, but yeah.
Does he bark in the kennel?
Sometimes he has the past 2 nights. He usually doesn't. And then I don't give him treats through this, but I do have the Furbo, and I don't talk to him through it either. I literally use it for the camera, and it gives me barking alerts. And there were 2 days specifically today, and a few days ago he was barking quite a bit.
But that was, we think, because the medicine.
He had a parasite, and the medicine like made him crazy.
Yeah.
They say, like, I looked it up and it said that it should make him sleepy, and it did the opposite both times.
It didn't sleep all day.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna keep an eye, on the barking. If it becomes a problem, you can use a bark collar.
Okay.
Because it's an e-collar, but it just clicks the dog automatically for barking. At least if you're going to be home or not home and he's unattended.
Right.
Do you live in like a standalone house or in like an apartment condo type building?
Apartment.
Yeah. I mean, because if he barks enough, he'll get complaints, and then that's another problem.
A little bit worried about.
So, but the bark collar would correct them and keep them in check so that when you're gone, he's quiet.
Right.
And then some dogs graduate past it, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Other dogs may need it just to keep chill.
Right.
Because it can go a number of ways where he'll be fine and then if something triggers the barking, he'll start barking, but then all of a sudden you'll just keep barking.
Right.
So there's a lot of variables there. But that's just something that I would just keep an eye on. And then usually what I recommend is that people tell their neighbors, like, hey, let me know about my dog or whatever if it becomes a problem, just because you're a step ahead. So they're more likely to go to you than they were to go to complain.
Smart.
Yeah,
I should
that
do
is
that.
smart.
Yeah.
And then tell them, like, you're looking for a trainer and all that stuff. So at least they know that you're also being proactive.
Right. Right.
Okay. And
Definitely.
then
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question I do have is, do you guys do any sort of payment plans, or do I have to pay all up front for all the classes?
Yeah, there's a payment plan.
Okay. Okay. Great.
If it's, I don't know if Square Installments is back, because we used to offer Square Installments, which was Square would pay us in full, and then Square would tell you, like, you have 6 months to pay the program, or 12 months, whatever.
Okay.
That's something that you would handle with Square.
Okay.
We can look into that to see if that's if they, because with COVID, everything got shut down. Like, they weren't doing loans and stuff. But
Right.
now things are kind of bouncing back. I think they're starting to offer it again.
Okay.
So that one would be the most flexible, because you're dealing with Square.
Okay.
If it's with us, it's half down to secure the spot. If you do 6 classes, it's half down.
Mhm.
And then 2 weeks later, you'd pay. So if it's 1,000, you pay 500. Then it'd be 250, then 250.
Okay.
Okay. And then you would have to have your last payment before the 5th class.
Before the
Okay. So then I'm paid full by the 5th class, using the 6-week as an example. If it's a longer program, then we split it up a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay.
Could we, like, say the 6 classes, and then if potentially, if I want to do 9 or 12, could we discuss that later and just start with the 6?
You can, but you pay the rate of 6 again.
Okay.
Okay. So if someone says, hey, I want to do 12, and they commit up front, they get a lower per class rate.
Right.
If they go, I want to do 6 and see what happens and do another 6, they're paying more.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Other questions?
Will you, or is it on your, I know I've seen your prices before,
They're on
but
my website.
they are all on your website. Okay.
Yeah, you just click on Obedience,
Okay.
and there's going to be 2 different rates, one for Oz Park or in my facility, and then one for in-home.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which now we're starting to transition to Oz Park just because it's so distracting.
Yeah.
It's really busy there. There's dogs, there's people, there's rollerbladers, skateboarders, parties,
That's
jazz
like the
bands.
environment that I want him to be able to be in, you know?
Yeah. So we'd be right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've seen you do pack walks. Right?
Yeah.
Are you, like,
The Saturday morning ones.
Yeah. Do you still do that, or do you plan?
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to offer that this year or going forward, just because I'm so busy that it's a time slot that I can use for a client.
Right.
I'm not 100% on it yet. I also have my other trainer, Enrique, who I thought about giving him that responsibility, because my clients that used it really did enjoy it. It's just, I'm just crazy busy now that I need any spot that I have to keep people.
Of course. Yeah. No, well, we're glad you're having a lot of business. That's a good thing.
2021 has been different from 2020 by, like, it's like 180. So
yeah.
Other questions?
I don't think I have any more, at least not right now.
What would you, before we get into, what would you recommend we try to focus on, or what do you think's the best thing we just work on before getting into?
With the training stuff?
Yeah.
What you can do is just watch my videos and just start practicing.
Okay.
Because I teach differently than most trainers.
Okay.
Which is probably why I get other trainers' dogs all the time.
Yeah.
Like I've everybody here in the city, I've trained their dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. Even the one place that I used to send people to before I got my facility. I used to send people there, and I still like them, but I don't like them as much because I've had a few clients from there, and there's some stuff that was completely wrong.
Yeah.
in my book. So I don't, well, when I have a facility, so I don't have to send anybody there anymore. But yeah, I just learned more about them that I wasn't, of stuff that I wasn't aware of. So, but they're still, much better than most facilities,
Yeah.
because most facilities are a free for all.
Yeah. We found you. We follow a trainer that's located in Pittsburgh that we love, that we like wish we could go to. And we were on a live and we just like posted like, does anybody know a good dog trainer in Chicago? And your name came up, I think twice.
Yeah.
So that's how we found you.
Someone recommended. We
Yeah.
don't know who.
Yeah, we don't know who they are.
Yeah, I'm not as active on social media now just because I'm so busy.
Right.
That's why if you look at our Instagram, it just kind of got quiet.
Yeah.
It's because I don't have the time to sit there to do a TikTok.
Right. Right.
I got other stuff to do. So
Yeah.
Anything else? Other questions?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I would put you at minimum at the 6th class range. At maximum, I don't think you need more than 9.
Okay.
Just because your dog already has a lot of training. It's really just relayering in the collar so that he understands it correctly. Okay. So if my assumption is correct, that should resolve a lot of issues. Okay. The only way this stuff really wouldn't, not that it wouldn't help, but if he is a genetic screw up, unfortunately we'll make a lot of progress, but he's just going to be that anxious dog.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And typically going into class 2 to 3, we'll have a good handle on is it genetics or is it miscommunication.
Okay.
And then we just kind of take it from there. If it is genetics, you'll have the control, you'll have the ability to stop things. You just wouldn't be able to relax him like you would want to. Okay. And that's nothing wrong, good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. I get a few dogs like that are just, they're just stressed out when they're out in the world. And there's people like that too. There's people that are just really anxious, and you're just like, there's nothing to be anxious about, but to them there is.
Right.
That's the same thing with dogs, for some dogs.
Right.
So, but I think obedience wise, it's really just clearing up things, no more than 9 classes. Behavior wise, if it's just like, I just really want to focus on the behavior, see what we get, then 6. Okay. And then Maria would send you the information for the collar for the dogs for Black Edition if you decide to pick that up. And then pretty much it.
How long are the classes?
An hour, once a week.
Perfect.
Yeah. If you're doing the 6 classes, we'll just go through the program. If you're doing 9 classes and like we're making great progress and you're like, oh wow, like this is such a difference than from before, what we do is I would teach or reteach all the commands to you. You do your homework, and then towards the second half of the program, I'd be helping you build him towards like off-leash reliability. Okay. The one command that has to be off-leash reliable is a recall. The other commands, it's just, if you want to have that much control.
Right.
There's no need to have your dog walk off leash unless you want that. But if it's really just communication stuff, we'll get a lot more done. Otherwise, if it is genetics, then we'll get a lot done. It's just your dog will just be stressed out when he's outside.
Right. And is that like the point that you would say, because I keep saying this to my brother all the time, is like, I'm not somebody that like, obviously I put a lot of time and effort into training my dog. I'm not like somebody that would just like, a dog or human, like put somebody on like, or recommend whatever anxiety meds, but is like that the point where you're like, okay, it's a genetic thing, they like actually need that?
I never recommend medication.
Never. Okay.
No.
Even
the only time, I shouldn't say never, the only time was I had a dog that used to vomit in the car. Okay, not me, my client dog.
right.
Vomit in the car.
Right.
And they're like, is there anything that we can do training wise? And I said, technically, yeah, because I've helped dogs before, because it's usually too much stress leading to vomiting, right? So if we get the dog to calm down in the car, we shouldn't get vomiting, right? Which works.
Yeah.
This particular case, their dog was just an anxious wreck in the car. And I said, you know, talk to your veterinarian. This is not anything that training can fix. And I was like, maybe it could be motion sickness, and see if there's like Dramamine for dogs.
Right.
So they went to their vet, and their vet gave them something. I don't remember what it was, but it's essentially just put the dog to sleep. You know, because they would go from here to Michigan, and it was like a 4-hour drive, and then they didn't want their dog throwing up in the car every time.
It's not. I would not.
So what ended up happening is the medication knocked the dog out for the drive, and I was like, that's not the best you can do.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't make it. We can't fix everything. It's just, it's not realistic.
Right.
But I've never recommended a client give their dog anti-anxiety meds,
Okay.
because it usually doesn't work. Like the
Okay.
dog's just anxious, still anxious. They're just more sedated, or they're more like just like out of it,
Yeah.
you know. And even if you ask people on medication for stuff like that, they'll tell you like, you know, oh, I don't like the way it makes me feel. You know, I feel kind of cloudy. Like it doesn't really help the anxiety. It's just kind of like a nulling or dulling effect.
Right.
So
Okay.
I leave that to personal preference. You know, I'm not a doctor or whatever,
Right.
but in my opinion, I've not seen medication really help a dog other than that one instance where the dog just fell asleep for the drive.
Okay.
Last question I have is, how many dogs would you say, or how often do you see genetic screw ups?
It's rare. It's rare. You know, yeah, like right now, maybe last year I saw 2. One being the pit that would salivate a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think Doug, the dog I'm working with right now, is a genetic screw up,
Okay.
but we're making progress. It's just if you watch his video, like you'll be like, wow,
Yeah.
that dog is anxious.
Yeah.
You know, but we're making progress with them. It's just more difficult than it would be with any other case similar to him.
Yeah.
So, but if you want a comparison, you know, just go to my YouTube and search Doug,
Okay.
and then you should see about 4 to 5 lessons up. And then he's human aggressive / and or reactive.
Yeah.
His dog reactivity cleared up really quick. It's the human reactivity he has a problem with.
Okay.
So he's a good case to watch to kind of get an example of a genetic, you know, screw up.
Nice.
Okay. Well, yeah, I honestly like don't think he is, but I sure hope not.
No,
Yeah, no. I definitely know.
Other questions?
I think that's all. Besides, like, how to proceed, is it just through Maria? She'll contact me, and then I would pick which package I want, and then book an appointment, or?
Yeah, so she would handle the scheduling process.
Okay.
So like if you know you want 6, you could, you know, at the end of this consultation, turn around and email Maria and say, sign me up for 6 classes, right? And then she'd send you a training contract. As soon as you get that in, she knows you're serious. She'll get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Or I'll email her, and then I give her a rundown where I'll say like, you know, Selena, 6 to 9 classes, Dr. Black edition. And then she turns around, and then when you're in queue, she'll then email you, because we have all like other consultations. We have new clients that are signing up, plus my current clients that reschedule, cancellations. Like she's got to go through all that stuff.
Right.
So if you initiate first, it just speeds the process up a little bit more quickly.
Okay.
And just as a heads up, Maria goes by the training form. Okay. So as soon as your training form is submitted, she knows you're serious.
How do I submit that?
So if you turn around and if you're like, hey, Maria, 6 classes or whatever, or like send me the form and I'm going to decide which program I want, right?
Okay.
The moment that form is in, you're in the queue to be in line for an onboarding client. Okay.
And then just for, how do you say it? Like, just for me to know, like, when should I then expect to hear from her? Just because like last time I didn't hear from her.
Yeah, I know. That's because
I know that was a mistake, and I'm not upset about it. I totally get it. I just want to have like an idea in my head when I should hear back from her.
Yeah, she's usually pretty quick.
Yeah.
But like we had one day where we had 8 consultations come through. And what happens is people get buried. We had in the past, and this has only been a problem now.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had about 4 to 5 people go like, hey, we submitted a form a month ago, you know, they just got buried.
Yeah. No, I totally.
So she's usually pretty quick. If you send her an email, she should be in contact with you within a couple of days. And then, you know, she'll get you the information and everything. When you'd be able to start just depends on your availability versus my availability, because we have to line that up. So that might be pushed out a little bit. But otherwise, you know, she's pretty good about handling things. We've also changed the consultation process. We're making people pay up front now. Because what would happen is people would be back and forth with Maria. They'd keep her on the phone for an hour, ask for an invoice, book a time, and then ghost us.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Right? Because there's no commitment.
Yeah.
So now we're like, pay us first, because so now it's clean. It's clearing up a lot of those people.
Yeah.
So it's freeing up her time more. And we just started this like a week ago, and it's already made a difference in terms of
I'm sure. Maybe. Okay, that's always
the process.
But that does bring a good point. So when I book whichever package I choose, I'm honestly not sure if I want 6 or 9 at this point. It will be then minus 135. Is that correct? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was right on that. Okay.
Yeah, so now it's not, well, at least for me, it's not credited anymore. But you signed the form before we changed it.
Okay.
So we're honoring everything up until that point the way it was. So you would get the credit.
Okay.
Okay. People now don't get the credit.
Oh, they don't get the $135 credit.
No.
I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying how I had to pay the 135 up front. I thought that's what changed. Okay.
No, so now it's you pay first, then Maria books you, whereas before Maria would book you, then you would pay. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is now my fee is not credited towards the program anymore.
I see.
Because my other trainer, Enrique, is doing consultations. So I'm trying to clear up my schedule so I can take people on for training and he can take on consultations.
I'm under. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, so we're doing that to try to open me up more, to open up Maria more. Okay. Because, you know, people would just waste our time.
Yeah.
But you would get the credit because your form was before we made that change. Okay, so we're honoring all those people's forms and stuff the way it was operated, but the people going forward, it's the new way.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, then I think we know everything we need to know. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. If you have any other questions, just let us know. Otherwise, Maria will get in contact with you, or you can contact her, and then we'll get the ball rolling. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much. You too. Yeah. See you soon.